Joker is my main in Smash Bros, which I don't think I ever really stated in the other thing, but I play Smash competitively, and it's one of the only real hobbies I have in my life right now. So that's why I cling to it dearly. One, because it's a fun game, but also because it's something I've put a lot of my time into to actually get better and pit myself against other people with. And Joker is my character of choice in that game. I picked Joker out of all the other roster, all the other cast, because he's very flexible. He's flexible in that he can play the game any way he needs to at any moment, and he can switch between many styles of gameplay very fluidly. So let me take for instance, let's compare that to someone else. Like, hmm, I don't have a very wide knowledge of a lot of characters, but let's compare it to a character like Samus. Samus can play the game in about two ways, really. There's the data collecting, campy way, where you figure out how your opponent likes to approach you. Well, as a baseline, you throw a lot of little projectiles at people to harass them, so that way they can't just sit away and not interact with you because you're trying to not interact with them. So you harass them with little projectiles or big projectiles, or sometimes you don't even do that. Sometimes you can just get them to approach because they're impatient and don't want to sit. You get them to approach somehow, whatever way that is with Samus. There are a couple different ways to do it. And then you figure out how your opponent likes to approach you. Maybe they just run in and throw out a dash attack. Maybe they'll jump in with a tomahawk grab, or they'll slowly walk up and shield stuff, or a mixture of any of those. And you figure out how they play through that, and then you stuff them out with all of Samus's tools. Samus has tools to make sure that you can wall other opponents out with your moves. Like forward air is a really long lasting hitbox that covers a great range to stuff out jumps. It's also disjointed somewhat. Charge shot can just hit people running at you. Grab can stop people who are running up and shielding. That's a very basic, they're very basic examples, but that's the gist of the that way. Or you can play Samus in a more free flow movement style where you use your projectiles to do reverse bouncing stuff, and so your opponent can never get a handle on what you're doing or where you're going or what you're going to do next. And you can interweave being aggressive and being defensive within those. And there are other ways you can do Samus. Those are the two main ones you generally see, and those are the ones that have had success in playing the game. And you can't, it's hard to play her rush down aggressive because her kit doesn't allow her to do that. One, because she is a slow floaty character, but also because her moves have slow startup. She's slow not only in movement speed, but slow also in her frame data. While Joker is a character that he can't camp full stage like Samus can, but you don't want to be really camping full stage anyway if you're trying to defeat somebody in a game. You want to be interspersing different levels of movement so that way your opponent thinks they can hit you and then you dash back and stuff. You never want to be staying in one place at any moment. Joker has really good movement and frame data. He's pretty quick. He has a good fall speed. Not good when he's getting comboed, but it doesn't really matter. I actually think in the game he's the Pikachu has this thing called Pikachu laddering, where he can just down throw you or off of a random hit. He can carry you from one side of the stage to the other and kill you with a forward air. And or they're called bridges, not laddering. Laddering is going up. And Joker has the best fall speed and weight for Pikachu's bridge combos. And so they're good in some senses, they're bad in others, but that's not really what I wanted to get at. Joker has good movement and good frame data, so he can be a rushdown character, but he also has two really good projectiles, and they're good in different ways. One is Aha, which is this little projectile he shoots out of his hand by snapping. Aha, he says something like that, and it travels at a downward, like a forward and slightly downward slanted angle towards the opponent till it hits the ground or dissipates a little bit. And that's good because it lingers a lot. It doesn't do a lot of damage on hit, but when it hits your opponent, it does like 15 damage over time. And so you can hit them once and then sort of intermediately camp them while they're taking damage. It's really good at that. It's good. It sets up for combos. It doesn't true combo into stuff. There are some very specific situations where you can true combo off of Aha, but you won't really get anything off of it. That's not what it's going for. It sends up at an angle to where if your opponent wants to land, they have to land with an aerial, or they have to either tech, land with an aerial, or it might send them onto a platform. Because it just sends them straight up only a little bit. And so it's a good way to win neutral, but also it's a good walling tool because it lingers a long time as it goes out. It doesn't travel very quickly. It does lose to most other projectiles, which is fine. It doesn't really need to. It has okay range. It's really good if you jump forward, do an Aha, and then drift back. That's essentially safe. That is very hard to punish. You have to be preemptively up in the air, like above Joker, because you knew he was going to Aha to punish that, which sometimes happens. Specifically, I see Mars do it to MKLeo a lot, because he's one of the only people who punishes him for doing that. Or when he can get away with doing it in neutral. There's that projectile, and then there's also Joker's gun, which is, I would say, his best camping projectile. Aha is good, has a lot of versatility, good in the neutral. You can tack off damage off stage, and people can't do much about it. But his gun is where he can sort of take that mid-range camping action to life and really bring that to the table. Because gun only does a little bit of damage. It does about 1.2 unstaled from a decent distance. The closer you get, the more damage it does. But if you're really far away, it won't make the opponent flinch, and they'll just take little bits of chip damage here and there. But it goes really far, doesn't have a lot of lag, and goes through almost everything in the game. Not through shield, but specifically in the Pac-Man matchup, he can throw down, what I'm thinking of is that he can throw down a hydrant, and that hydrant stops a lot of projectiles in its path, and so Pac-Man has time to do stuff and just sort of camp his own game. Like Wolf Laser doesn't go through it. I don't think Ninja Neutral B goes through it. That one might, though. Like Fox Laser and all the spacey lasers really don't go through it. Joker's... or I don't think Robin's projectiles go through it. Maybe the big Thoron does, but I don't think the other ones do. Joker's gun is really quick, and it's pretty safe if done from far. And you can just tack on little bits of chip damage to Pac-Man. And so it ruins his whole game plan of, oh, I'm just going to sit behind hydrant and then charge something, and then when you try to approach me, I'll stuff you out with whatever you're doing. Maybe you're trying to roll through the hydrant or jump over it or break it. Like, he'll figure out how you like to break it and when you do those, and then stuff you out for it. But Joker doesn't have to deal with that because he can just shoot gun and tack on damage while Pac-Man does that. And so he can do it sometimes in the match, but he can't just do it the whole time because he will take buttloads of damage for nothing. And then he still has to win neutral. And so Joker gets free damage for doing that, and it ruins that strategy. And I can't think of what it is right now. I'd have to look at the character roster. But I think there are another character or two where Guns does something similar. All counters in the game, or reflectors, that's what I'm thinking of. All reflectors in the game cannot reflect a gun. Aha does count as a projectile, but gun, even though it travels really far, counts as a physical hit because it's a bullet hitting you instead of an energy projectile. I don't know how it works, but that's how it is. And so if a character has a reflector and you're just spamming gun from one side, they think, oh, I'm going to reflect the hit so that way I don't get hurt from this far, and he can't just spam that. Well, that doesn't work because reflectors only reflect projectiles, and gun does not have a projectile attribute. It has a physical hit attribute, which funnily enough means you can counter it. But countering it doesn't do anything because you're not in range for the counter to hit. And instead, you just sort of like flail your counter out into the wind, and then you get hit by 2 more bullets in the end lag. That's really good for gun. And so with those two things, Joker can mix. Another thing, I didn't mention this, but you can do 2 guns in a short hop, whether that's spacing backwards, spacing forwards, or just in place. I think you can do 3 in a full hop, but that's a much tighter input. It doesn't matter. And so a lot of the time in the game, just while approaching or running away, a lot like Fox and Falco in Melee, you can do these little short hop guns while you're approaching. It's not quite as good as the Melee things, to affect other people. One, because it gun affects your fall speed, so you can't so you're a little vulnerable after it. But if you do it correctly, you can add a lot of little bits of damage here and there in every game and camp your opponent out and be safe, while also Joker being one of a very good rushdown. He can play that campier style and sort of movement camp you out, or just distance camp you and figure out your approaching habits like Samus. Not as well as Samus, I'd say, but still very well. He also has some of the best neutral tools in the game, as well as some of the best edge guarding and recovery stuff too. His back air disjointed really quick. Essentially unpunishable if spaced on shield. If you don't space it, you have time to spot dodge a grab, but not if you short hop it because of the multiplier. I think it's like the 0.8 times multiplier. It actually becomes not safe anymore. You can stuff people out in the air for it. Amazing move, really good combo game. The reason I've picked Joker as my main is because he can do anything and everything he needs to for every matchup. He doesn't exactly go into a game with a game plan, per se, other than I'm going to figure out what your habits are, and I'm going to turn those on your head and destroy you for those. Also, he's going to land the grab because he can take you from 0 to 50, or just get you off stage and then ledge trap you to hell and back, so Joker's pretty good at all of that stuff. I have the coronavirus, so I might be coughing through these things. And there's an interesting thing that a video I was listening to pointed out to me. Well, I don't know why I'm being vague about it. It's the same Digibro stuff I've been consuming all the time as of late. He mentioned that he mains, partially why I brought up Samus earlier, he mains Samus in Smash Bros. And he said that, the way I live my life is similar to how I play Samus in Smash Bros. Because he plays the more fringe Samus, where he's on the outskirts of interactions, and he observes people and figure out what they want to do, and so he can manipulate them later on. And he doesn't want any direct interaction with anyone. He just sits on the outskirts, analyzes, makes a game plan, and manipulates. And that got me thinking about, hey, what does Joker mean for my life, I suppose? Joker can adapt to any he has amazing tools to adapt to any situation he's put in. He doesn't go in, he doesn't need to be fiery, hot, flaming aggressiveness like Roy or Chrom, I suppose. He doesn't need to camp and run away from things like Samus does. He doesn't need to play a sword fighter sort of spacey ranged way, or a sword fighter spacing safe on shield conditioning game such as many of the Fire Emblem characters, but like Lucina or Ike. He can play any of them, and he can do all of them well. He doesn't need to play a combo-oriented game like Sheik. There are a lot of parallels to him and Sheik, and I tried out Sheik. It's interesting, because Sheik can just win neutral super easily, but Sheik doesn't manage to capitalize much on that. You have to be so on top of your game, on top of your punishes, on top of your neutral and ledge trapping. And you have to win neutral so many more times than the other person does. It's easier, but if you're fighting against a Bowser, then that Bowser needs to win neutral 3 times to kill you, because you're so light and you have to win so many more times. And granted, you do quite a bit of damage when you manage to do it, but it's landing that final kill option that really is tough, and it's hard to do. I feel a strange connection to Joker, I suppose, that I don't feel when I play other characters. I mentioned briefly in the other thing I did, I don't want to call it episode or video, I suppose. I'm not sure why, so I keep calling it these vague things. But I mentioned briefly I had tried to play other characters online, and it didn't really feel right or work out to me. Feel right is really a good way to put it. I felt very locked into a specific way of playing. The two characters, or three, that I have tried out other than Joker extensively are Lucina, Wolf, and Cloud. Cloud being the most of them, and Cloud being the closest I've come to playing like Joker. All of their neutrals are based very heavily on figuring out, on analyzing your opponent, having good movement, and punishing your opponent for playing the game badly, and then forcing them to approach with something. I mean, Lucina doesn't really have that. Lucina can just sort of approach for free because of her disjoints really well, and her good frame data and shield options. But completely lost my train of thought. So I'm just going to talk until I can reclaim it. They all have a very good sense of neutral, and they can all force other people to play the game, but none of them feel as fluid and as free form and as expressive as I can be with Joker. I can do so much. I can be cool, I can be lame, I can do anything I want to be within any set situation. And that's not how I am right now, but that is what I want to be in life. I want to be very adaptable, and I try to be in a position, or keep my mind in a position, might be a better way to put it, where no matter what happens, or what people I interact with, or what things I do, I'm always able to try to find something else. And I don't know. Maybe I'm clinging too much onto that one thing that G Pro said, because Smash is all I really feel I have. Not because I lack other things to do, but because I have spent a lot of time into it. I have put much of my time into getting better at the game, and I have an extensive knowledge of the game as well. And so anytime I hear anybody say something about it that could comment on my own psyche or human condition, and I tend to cling on to it. There's some YouTubers that talk a lot about mentality in Smash Bros, and I cling on to those a lot. But in the end, I know that I've only been playing the game for about 2 years, a year and a half if you want to really cut it down. And it's not all that I have. I can move on and I can go and do other things other than this. I can put my time and hobby into more creative experiences. Not that Smash isn't creative, but it's a specific brand of competitive creativity that I enjoy from it. And I can find different brands of expressiveness, like what I'm doing right now in this, I guess I want to call it a vlog, a podcast. I don't know. I'll just call it a thing for now because I don't want to label it and lock myself into a mindset. See, like Joker, I don't want to lock myself into a thing. I don't want to lock myself in. I don't want to box myself at all or close off any doors. But in that same way, I also end up becoming very indecisive, both in my gameplay and in real life. I'll tend to wait for someone else to make the first move so I can punish that, rather than forcing them to make the first move so I can punish it. In life, I'm a very reactionary person. I don't often go out to interact with people or go out to find things to do or make myself better. I wait for something to happen within my own life that forces me to do that. Maybe my mindset just happens to be in one day where happens to be a moment where everything clicks and finally I'm creative and finally I can do the things that I feel I want to do. But that is completely up to chance, and right now even I'm really tired, and it's not that I don't want to be creating this, but I feel as if I don't have much to say while making it. I keep coming back to that point, and I think I will until I have something interesting to say. And I'm not going to stop creating these things. I'm going to try and keep bringing new topics and new ideas to this so one day I can be interesting. I don't know how long it will take or when I'll get there or what topics I'm going to keep talking about. These beginning episodes will probably be me talking about Smash Bros. A lot because it's what I know about. But eventually, I'm going to run out of ideas for that, or things that I think I've already said or commented on, and I'm going to have to branch out. And hopefully, by me doing this, I can force myself to become better, because if I don't, I won't have something new to say every time. That is my ultimate hope in creating. I'll go ahead and say the name. In creating HMM, or I've always been fascinated with the term It fits in a lot of situations, and it's a very it fits my aesthetic sensibilities, I should say, which is very important to me in my media that I consume. I've come to realize that it's probably the most important thing to me in what I consume. It doesn't need to have some high, lofty ideas that shakes my worldview, though that is nice. It doesn't need to have a groundbreaking story or characters that really make me feel or really make me want to be better, or that I just can really relate to, and it makes me feel better by watching the show. It doesn't need those things, though those are all appreciated. What a show or game or book needs for me to enjoy it is aesthetic, which is a very cool word, but very vague as well, I feel. I use that term. It needs to have something that I can't quite put my finger on for it to be worth my while. The traditional components of media that make it good, or that you would think make it good, do increase the quality of the piece for me. It's the most important aspect and the defining factor of any piece of art for me to enjoy it or like it is how much I like it aesthetically. And usually that means art style and music. And music it's very hit or miss for me what makes a song good. It needs some energy to it that another song doesn't have, I believe. It can have a lot of overplayed elements into it if it has some new elements that I also enjoy. And in art, I haven't even done enough art or looked into how you would go about drawing things or how like the whole color spectrum works to know what I like in art yet. Maybe that's something I can do. I can go look at that up so I can talk about it at some other point in time. Well, I feel as if I'm starting to wind down now, or running out of things to say about Joker. Well, that's not true. I just stopped thinking about it. So if I go back on Joker, he fits my aesthetic so hard. He is a cool looking red and black trench coat wearing baller of a man, or baller of a teenager, which is even better. Who I've played a lot of Persona 5. I haven't finished it, but when I know, he takes his group of friends and goes and raids people's minds to make them fit better in society because they're evil. That's dope. That's so cool. And I think they somehow managed to fit that in his animations and his design in Smash Bros. Or I guess if you want to get, this is more just a Smash Bros. Thing, but if you boil it down, Joker goes and takes the bad in people and forces them to be good, whether they like it or not. And Joker in Smash Bros. Punishes people for their bad habits, and they have to get better at the game or they'll lose because he's punishing their habits. So in that way, he is represented in the game by him being a whiff punisher. I've never really thought of that, before. It's also definitely a stretch and not what they intended, I don't think, but it's my own intent for the character. I don't really care what they were going for. Oh, that's not true. Ah, music game in the game is cool. I can't talk about things. I don't have very good flow to my mindset. That is why I'm doing this, so it will become better. And today, I think I'm done. I don't think there's a lot more I have to say on what I want to talk about today. So, that's gonna be the end of it.